Hello, folks. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement.
We are meeting on lands that have been home to Indigenous nations since time immemorial. We acknowledge we are on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, as well as the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the area now known as the Township of Centre Wellington, the Mississaugas could not continue their traditional lifestyle and retreated to villages along the Credit River, eventually settling in the Grand River Valley. The Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the Township of Centre Wellington remains home to Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to share and respect Mother Earth and are committed to building constructive and cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations.
Thank you. Item 3 in addendums and corrections to the agenda. I'd like to move item 8.9, item 8.9 to 8.3, so we just move that up. It pertains to the termite management direction report. And then we'll have some delegations, also as a result of having some delegations. Ian McRae, Tammy Rutherford, and Kirk McElwain will also be speaking to that. So just in that, if council's good with that, we'd like to move those up. Okay, thank you, council. Item 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Do you have any conflicts? Okay, seeing none. Approvals and adoptions of the minutes. So 5.1, Council, March 27th, 2023. Minutes, a recommendation that the minutes of Council meeting held March 27th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. Do you have a mover on that? Councillor McDonald first, Councillor Evoy second. All those in favor? So moved. Item 6, presentation and announcements. And at this point, we'll welcome County Councillor Mary Lloyd. Hello, Mary.
Good evening to you, Mayor Waters, and to the councillors and to the staff and all of our visitors that are here tonight. Please accept the appreciation that I'm extending to you for giving me an opportunity on your agenda to update you with all of the things that are happening at Wellington County. Currently, we're in the process of conducting a corporate satisfaction survey. It's the first one that we've ever done, and the results, along with our strategic priorities, will come together as our second strat plan. We have already achieved some projects that were on our 2018-22 term, so now it's time to move forward and add some new items to the list. Wellington Place, the home of our National Historic Site, the Wellington County Poorhouse. In Aboyne Hall, we have updated the visual system, and Tree Trust held an event there, and we also planted 15 silver maple trees. Currently, the Insight Juried Art exhibit is going on, so if you get an opportunity, stop by to see that. Later this week, on April 26th at 10 a.m., the county, with the direction of our Indigenous Advisory Committee, will be dedicating our gathering circle. That will see the raised beds for plantings. Over 400 trees, fruit trees especially, will be planted, and there will be spaces there for contemplation as we all continue our path for reconciliation and recognition of the truths. Finally, on May 13th, the official opening will happen for our children's playground. It's a fun day planned for young visitors to the museum. Now, there are 3 library branches in Centre Wellington. They are all very busy with programming, and the lending levels have returned to pre-pandemic numbers. There are many new card holders that are happening all the time. And when Service Canada is at work, we have regular service levels hosted at Aboyne Library on the 1st and the 3rd Thursdays. So everything that you could get at a Service Canada office, you could get at those dates in Aboyne. So it's an opportunity to save the trip to Guelph. And just a reminder, there are no late fees. those are a thing of the past, but please do remember to bring your books back. In land planning activities, we're keeping the staff very busy due to the number of changes that the provincial government keeps pushing our way. The official plan updates, causing us to have our municipal comprehensive review done, seems to be a moving target. So we are continuing to work on that. Our last meeting, we actually had our published agenda, but as Mayor Waters can attest, there was a new report that came out the day before we were to meet. And so it has extensive ramifications on all of Wellington County. We have a partnership in Wellington County with the Rural Water Quality Program. This is delivered through the Grand River Conservation Authority. And through a cost-sharing program, landowners and many different levels of government have conducted last year 107 projects. And since 1998, over 7,000 projects have happened in Wellington County. These range from windbreaks for tree plantings, livestock fencing to keep them out of waterways, and manure storage, and also well decommissionings. Green Legacy is busy distributing the pre-ordered trees, and last year we celebrated 3 million trees that have been planted by 2022. It's a program that's nationally recognized, and we're getting all kinds of contact with different municipalities that are wondering how did we do it, because they want to start the same as we're all working towards our efforts for climate change. Also, the Ministry of Ontario Performance Review was completed. So in 2022, there were a total of 853 new units that were constructed. Out of that, thank you, Centre Wellington, you are home to 426 of them. All these units, which are apartment, house, or semi-detached, or they were inside the urban boundary. They did not take agricultural land. So the plan that's in place is working right now. We're all working towards trying to keep that plan working and being respectful of our agricultural friends. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Is there any comments or questions for Councillor Lloyd? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and thank you, Mary, for the presentation, Councillor Lloyd. So I was just curious with the planning matters, do you know when, I think the county planning staff are going to work on a report that could be shared with Centre Wellington. Do you know when that might happen?
I believe that it will be at our next land planning meeting where it will be published for us to have a look at what's going on. Because it came in so close to our date and the way our agendas work with being published to the public, we won't have anything until May, I believe it's May 11th is our next meeting that we'll have that. And it should be quite informative, as all of the municipalities were hit with surprises.
Just a follow-up, I've had some questions from residents saying the maps in the OPA 119 decision are difficult to read and difficult to tell where the actual urban expansion boundaries are. Will county staff be putting together some more clear visuals that will help residents understand exactly what the implications are?
Thank you, Ash, for asking for that, Bronwyn, Councillor Wilton. So the maps that we did cover in our meeting in April are actually easier to understand because it shows the number of open areas that have been designated right now for urban growth. So the new updated one that the province gave us did not highlight that, so that will be updated, and those maps are a little bit more easy for us to read and decipher, because there were a number of already open site plans that have, not site plans, but eligible for development areas.
Any other comments? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
It's not really a question. I just want to really thank you for updating us. There's an awful lot going on in Wellington County and an awful lot just in Centre Wellington. So thank you so much. And yes, I returned my books.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Any other comments, questions? Well, thank you, Councillor Lloyd, for your report. Let's move to item 6.2, and I'd like to welcome Toni Ellis, Executive Director to Tree Trust, to speak in front of Council. Welcome, Toni.
Today? Okay. Oh, look at that. So, my name is Toni Ellis, and thank you, Mayor and members of Council, staff, and people in the room for putting me into your busy agenda today. I founded Neighborwoods in 2006, and we are a branch of the Elora Environment Center, which is a registered charity, which is proving to be a tremendous benefit to us. And I wanted to put this Christmas tree up to show you that took the place of the Norway spruce that was dying. And that tree went in 2006. And if you look at it now, it's a real testament to how fast trees grow if you just give them a chance and get them in the ground. Let's just see. Oh, forward this way. Oh, there we go. Okay, so Neighborwoods over the years has done a number of different projects. We've done lots of tree planting, and I'm proud to say every tree we plant, we go back and we take care of it with mulch. We also piloted a program called Citizen Pruning, which gave people a chance to get out and work on the very small little trees and see if we could improve their architecture. We do lots of tree walks and tree talks. For over 10 years, we ran a tree inventory, which was basically going out and looking at a number of variables about trees, their species, health, size, and so on. We did over 12,000 trees that are in the database now, that are on our map, and I believe the township's map as well. And we also ran Celebration Trees, which we invited people to donate, and we now have about, I believe, 112 trees in municipal parks that are all plaqued in recognition of somebody was loved and wanted to honor with a tree. So that was a great way to get trees into the parks. What do you think? Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you very much. So I want to point out that all of the work that Neighborwoods has done has been possible because of the tremendous time and dedication and commitment from so many volunteers over the years, people who love and value trees and want to help our urban forest. That's what's made it possible. So I'm here tonight to request that I'd like to work more closely with Council, and I'll speak about that a little bit more at the very end. But for now, I just wanted to cover 3 key points. One, about the value and importance of trees, a couple of key strategies that we can use to support them, and as the Mayor pointed out, I would like to just tell you briefly about Tree Trust, which is a program we started a few years ago. So trees are our miracle municipal asset. And for those of you who got a chance to take a look at it, I copied a really great 3-page article from Municipal World that was ran a couple of years ago. And it runs through basically the history of where trees used to be seen and how they are seen today. And frankly, why are they such an important asset in every municipality? Oops. Okay, so this is some of the benefits of trees, and honestly, I could talk for 2 hours about the benefits of trees. But in brief, we know they're storing carbon for us. They're also generating oxygen. Every time I talk to kids, that's the first thing out of their mouth is they give us oxygen. And that's really important. We don't have any other way of making oxygen that's natural. They slow stormwater from hitting the pavement, which extends the life of a pavement, and it also helps recharge the water table. Habitat, shade. Interestingly, in Toronto, the health department in Toronto sees tree planting as a key plank and shade as key planks in their health policy because of, frankly, skin cancer. Huge increase in real estate value and our mental and social well-being, and I think we're all familiar with that after COVID, right? And there's lots of documented evidence about how much trees help our well-being, cutting down, reducing ADHD. People heal faster in a hospital if they have a view of a tree. There's less bullying on a schoolyard if there's trees on the schoolyard. So again, I'll go on and on. And I just wanted to point out the little pie graph on the right is one that we ran a few years ago. We called it the price tag project, but we put that on a few trees just to remind people that there is actually a dollar value to all of our trees. So you can put a price tag on what they're really worth. This is kind of self-explanatory to me, but the bigger the tree, the bigger the benefit for all of the things I just said. If it's got more leaf area, if it's got more trunk, it's got bigger roots, it's doing more for us. And this matters both for the size of the tree, the age of the tree, and also the species of the tree. So if you have a little diminutive pear tree, it's not going to do nearly as much as a mighty oak for us. And so we're always advocating, wherever possible, to be planting bigger trees. And while our big trees are so important, we are losing them from a variety of reasons. The emerald ash borer, everybody's familiar how it's wiped out all of our ash trees, which has been devastating because they were all planted to take over from the elm trees. But you can see on the left is the picture of the tree that there was a urban forest policy that was supposed to protect that tree. You can see it's completely been ignored. All of the heavy bricks that are sitting on the roots will no doubt have compacted the roots of that tree, and who knows how much longer it's got to be with us. And then, oops daisy, the other tree, you can just see it's been kind of neglected and not taken care of particularly well. Oops, shoot. So, okay, what should we do? Well, there's two big things we can do. First of all, we can be planting more trees. And frankly, in this community, we are, which is terrific. However, it's clear that planting the tree is not a straightforward thing. And why is that? Because a tree, when it goes in the ground, has requirements. First of all, you need good soil, and it's pretty interesting. There's an organization called Greening the Landscape out of Vineland in Niagara region, and they've been hired. They're doing some research with the City of Toronto and Mississauga to try to figure out why are they losing 20 to 40% of the new trees that they plant within the first 5 years. Why is that? Well, what they're discovering so far anyway suggests 70% of the trees are being lost because the soil isn't good enough. And so trees need organic matter in the soil, they need elements, they need aeration, they need fluffiness. And you can see this is a typical new development. So it's going to be tough for that soil to recover and be able to really host a good tree. You also have to make sure you get the right tree in the right site. And the best of all are trees that are grown from local seeds. And that's something that we're seeing more and more. We used to plant trees that came up from Kentucky. Now people are really trying to plant trees from local seed stock because those are the trees that are suited to our local environment. If you're talking about street trees, you absolutely need engaged homeowners because they're part of the equation. And you'll notice we've been putting out trees, but they come with those little irrigation bags, and I get lots of calls from people who don't know what that bag is for. And at one point we ran posters and we did some drop-offs to people to just tell them, you're supposed to fill that irrigation bag with water to help the tree, to help water the tree over time. We also, if I've seen one of this, I've seen 1 million of people who don't know. They get too close to the base of the tree, as illustrated in the middle picture, with their whippersnipper or lawnmower, and that's pretty much a fatality for that tree. And then you need to oftentimes provide some follow-up care for the new trees that have gone out. So losing a tree, once you've planted it, we can't explain why this tree died, who knows, but it's expensive. It's certainly a waste of time and resources. And if you think about what it took to grow that tree, to get it to that point in the first place, that was a big effort right there. And there it's gone. And of course, for people who plant and care about trees, it's kind of disheartening to lose them. So for this reason, there's definitely an increased interest and across the industry and the people that I work with in preserving the trees that we've got. These are the trees that are the most valuable. Frankly, they're obviously grown from local seed stock. They're well adapted to their environment. So let's hang on to them. And all the benefits that I mentioned earlier, well, obviously they're all significantly more when you have a bigger tree. And in fact, there's a great little report out of Ohio that says it takes 289 saplings to do the work of one large mature tree. And you can kind of picture that. So we started Tree Trust because I was really alarmed about the number of big legacy trees that we were losing around town. And we were losing them, quite frankly, because they were neglected and there was an opportunity to save them. And so we started Tree Trust, and this is where, frankly, our charitable status comes into play. It's a very simple model. We raise donations, public charitable donations, to hire arborists who know what they're doing to preserve these trees. And this was an amazing sugar maple we did last year for Earth Day at the cemetery in Salem. And there were 5 arborists out in the tree. And as somebody pointed out, do their mothers and fathers know what they do for a living? So they are way out on the tips of those branches doing very, very fine cuts. This is why we call our Tree Trust arborists the A-team. This is a really interesting example of a typical thing that would be done to preserve a tree. It's called a crown reduction. And you can see on the left, it's a bigger canopy, which has 2 effects. It's a bit of a sail for that tree, and it also means the tree has to work harder. And so the arborist, Balm Tree Care, who is our Tree Trust approved arborist, climbed up into the tree and he reduced the canopy. They call it tucking it in. So they bring the tree down so the tree doesn't have to work so hard. And I would just like to point out, I had another arborist who visited the tree and said, we can't save that tree. So it's a typical example that some it's like every business, right? There's a continuum. We hire the best. This year, 2 years ago actually, we've added what we call teenage trees to our Tree Trust program. So typically we focus on the large legacy trees, but if we can take care of some of these littler ones, younger ones, when you do a pruning cut on a smaller tree like this, it's much less traumatic to it. It'll heal faster and ensure that it can become a big legacy tree with less interventions later. These are the trees that are in front of Baker Tilly, and we applied to the Rotary Club for a grant to take care of these trees. And the ones on the left, you'll see, are the ones that we planted in between the 4 legacy sugar maples that used to stand there. How we raise money, several different ways. On our website, we have a Tree Trust, a carbon calculator that people can use. So when we started the program, lots of people were flying, and frankly, they were feeling a little bit guilty for flying and the carbon cost of flying. So on our website, we have a very easy-to-use calculator so you can determine how much carbon your flight is going to generate, and then we have a suggested donation amount. So it's one way to kind of try to make up a little bit for flying. One donor lost his father, and so in lieu of flowers, he wanted to recognize a tree, save a tree, and it's the tree in behind the Knox manse. And when he came down from the tree, when Balm Tree came down from the tree, he said that tree will go for another 200 years. So the donor was ecstatic, of course. And many people donate just because they love and value the big old trees. And as part of the program, we always plant at least 2 carbon capture heroes that'll take over one day. And as Councillor Lloyd pointed out, we planted a number of maples on Saturday. Sorry. So what we started here in Centre Wellington, I'm happy to say is expanding. We now have 7 chapters who are all using our model. And this is the event, that Councillor Lloyd referenced. We did the Tree Trust celebration, and I was thrilled. Our mayor was there, Councillor Lloyd, and also our Senator Rob Black was there to speak about the tree. And again, 15 trees were planted in conjunction with this. And Balm Tree Care had 3 arborists working in the tree all day, working on that tree, and it's pretty interesting because you look back at it now and you can hardly tell there's a difference. That's how fine and careful the work is that they do. I'd like to just acknowledge that certainly since I've been doing this, the township has made huge strides in terms of the urban forest and working on it, but of course, in my opinion, there's still more to do. And I'd like to suggest that perhaps there's an opportunity for us to work more collaboratively and synergistically with township staff. We bring expertise. I'm on we have a bunch of professional networks. And as I said, we have a mailing, I didn't say this already, but I'm going to tell you now, we have a mailing list of about 500 people in our mailing list. Lots and lots of public support for trees. So we would love to bring that kind of energy to the table. And one specific example I'd just like to draw your attention to is the fact that there are a number of mature trees that I've seen posted that are coming down in Elora and also up in Salem. And people are wondering what's going on. Why is that? Tell me is there a plan? How is this being communicated? And quite frankly, from what I see, the option seems to be removal or nothing. And I think there's probably some opportunities for some remedial work as we do for tree trust trees. So I'd like to see that considered as part of this program. And the other thing is, I could just mention the one other idea that popped into my head. I was at a thing on Saturday, and they were talking about in Toronto, they're doing a foster tree program. So I thought, well, that's something else we could work on. We could work on, if people have a tree in front of their house, we could invite them to become foster parents for that tree and name it and take ownership of it. So, so I'd just like to conclude by pointing out this is a sugar maple, believe it or not, that's still standing, and lots of people would have given it the axe before now, but look at it go. It's determined to keep going. Sugar maples die slowly, and he's an example of, boy, oh boy, is he ever regenerating himself. So, I bet I went over time. I practiced, but I think I went over time, sorry.
Thank you very much, Toni. Council, comments, questions? Yes, we'll start with Councillor Evoy.
Through you, Mayor Waters, thank you so much, and thank you so much. I do have some questions of clarification. In one of the earlier pictures, and then you spoke to it, there was a picture of the bricks on a homeowner's tree. Who is responsible is my overarching question. And then you later said it's up to a caring homeowner, which is fine until they move and we're replaced with a non-caring or a non-committed, I shouldn't say, person to that tree's well-being. So my first question is around that. What does your plan, or does your plan address any of that?
Okay, so that's a great point, Councillor. So the first tree that I showed you was when we had a tree policy. Now we have a bylaw, so huge improvement, because under a policy, it's a policy, but now they can't ignore it anymore. So we hopefully will not see that again. Does that make sense?
It does. Who, through you, Mr. Chair, who is monitoring those? Like, obviously, our staff is busy, and to go around looking for trees that are not doing well, I don't know that we have the time or capacity for that. So is there anyone, is that part of your offer? Like, again, you know where I'm going to go with this with regards to our conversation. So we can even circle back to the last question, how it joins up. The second one is, what is UF?
Urban forestry.
Okay.
Urban forest, sorry.
Great. And the third one then takes us back to what we're talking about. What exactly is, what would you like to offer, or what would you like to see happening? Can you create a list for us that is a little more detailed and a little less ambiguous? Things like, we will, we're committed to driving around. If you'll fix it, we'll look for the sick ones, or something of that nature.
That's a great question, and I think what I'd like to do is have a dialogue with staff and perhaps somebody from council, somebody, so that we can explore what is it that the township needs and how is it we could help support that. But we're certainly open.
Thanks for clarifying.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Thank you, Toni. That was a wonderful presentation. My question is, how are you funded completely? So I heard you say you're a charitable donation, so you're registered charity now. Do you currently receive monies from Center Wellington, and you use that too? And do you apply for grants? Like, can you explain that maybe
Sure.
just a little bit?
That's a really good point, and I've neglected to say that the tree that we did on Friday, thank you, was funded by the township under one of your grants. So that was great. So the township paid to take care of that tree. So we're thrilled about that. We do get some corporate support. For example, the Sutherland Insurance Company. We have some funding from the Echo Foundation out of Montreal. And I am writing more grants. And I am trying to learn how to ask for money from donors and philanthropists who love trees.
Yeah, it's hard to do, but yeah, that's great. And so you mentioned how you've branched out to 7 chapters. Do you help out with those 7 chapters, or are they their own?
That's a great question. So, yeah, each one runs autonomously. So they're all managed kind of like we are here with their own team of generally volunteers. And, but they're under our umbrella. So we issue the tax receipts. They're in our website. Guelph is doing their launch tree. They're going to be doing their first tree on next Saturday. So I'll go down there and I'll speak. And actually, they've got the leader of the Green Party coming to that. So that's kind of great profile for us. So they're all running autonomously. They pick which trees they want to work on. We work with their arborists. We provide annual training for their arborists so that they build a community of the elite arborists working together. We have a very senior arborist who leads the training on that. So it's I guess, kind of a franchise model almost, Councillor.
Okay. Yeah, it could be. Isn't that how Green Legacy got started? A little bit. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other, yes, Councillor Adams.
Yes, thank you for being here today, Toni. And I'm just kind of thinking, I don't know if it was during orientation or, but I think we had recommended to have Madeleine come to an upcoming meeting. And so I'm just wondering if, when that report is brought to council, if we could maybe speak to the existing relationship with Tree Trust and potentially speak to collaboration opportunities as well. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Toni, I've known you for a very long time. And I'd just like to thank you for all your good works over the years. You're definitely an inspiration. You have a group of people behind you who are very dedicated. And I think on behalf of the community, we really appreciate all the good works that you've done over the years. Anyways, thanks today for your presentation, and we look forward to talking about this very important subject more. So anyways, thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 6.3, Councillors' Committees updates. Looking to Council to provide us any updates that way.
Sure.
Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, I had my first QMS meeting at the end of March, so I believe, I haven't updated that. Just a few highlights where the locations are going to be color-coded now for better clarification. Last June, we had a huge, kind of a little downward spiral in our water, and that was because the fire department was doing some of their fire department things in testing and using all the water, and we had a drought in June. Like, we were very short in June. So that was interesting to see that in the results. Some of the pump parts, there's been a 4-week delay. Apparently that's picking up now, but during COVID, they had huge delays in parts. April and May of last year, that was the results of the repair. Iron and manganese treatments out in Storybrooke, there was a little issue there that's been corrected. And it also brought to light the price of chemicals for our water supply. So noting that, that's going to affect some of our rates. Overall, it was a great meeting. We went over what staff are doing. And that's about it. All the reports that I was given on that committee, I would like them shared with the council if that's okay. And then if they have further questions, they can ask me.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Evewyte, okay. No other reports from committees? Okay, thank you, Council. We're going to go to item 7, delegations. So at this time, I would like to invite Ian McCrae up. I see Ian back there to speak to the termite question. And before you start, Ian, I'll just give you a heads up. You have 10 minutes. You probably know this off by heart, but you have 10 minutes and 1 minute left. I'll let you know when you're at that point. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Good evening, Mayor Waters, council, staff, and residents. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm here to share my views regarding the Termite Management Direction Report. The report is thorough, providing two opposing options, all in or all out, with sufficient background information to decide. The previous council was united in our opinion that individual homeowners needed help to face our termite challenge. We endorsed a multi-year termite management control program like Guelph's. It is frustrating and discouraging to hear it did not launch. History has shown that termites continue to spread despite individual homeowners' efforts. Why? Because homeowners are unable and not responsible for eradicating termites beyond their properties and on public lands. Only an all-encompassing, coordinated, block-by-block approach will work, as envisaged in option 2. Imagine raking all your leaves only to see more return because there is no concerted effort to clean up neighboring public and private locations simultaneously. Termites present a similar challenge. They will return because they have places beyond your property to regroup and assault again. Termite nests can be huge, containing up to 1 million termites encompassing a 328-foot radius. They can travel 500 feet from their nest, while the airborne version may travel up to 3,000 feet to start new nests. It is clear why householders need help to solve this problem. Guelph's successful efforts outlined in its 2021 termite status report have steadily and significantly reduced the termite population in areas affected since 2010. Guelph's program integrates 4 components: pre-treatment and remedial treatment, combined with preventative measures in new construction, termite habitat elimination, and termite population suppressive treatments. Option 1 ignores the problem, allowing the termite population to expand its territory, exposing more of Centre Wellington's housing stock, and locking homeowners into perpetual termite control costs. We might as well give termites the keys to our community. The annualized homeowner cost for annual nematode and site inspections, combined with chemical treatments every 4 to 5 years, is $1,000 to $2,000. Who has this money, especially in today's economic environment? Who of you has spent thousands of dollars removing trees and stumps, tearing apart your home, or tearing it down to remove termites? These scenarios are realities in our community. The 2020 termite survey identified that approximately 352 properties had or were susceptible to termites. That number will rise until we get serious about addressing our collective problem. Given their persistence, your neighbor's termites will become yours. Guelph has shown termites can be stopped, and Woolwich is adopting Guelph's program. Over time, we can shrink our termite population and hopefully eradicate it. But that requires a force of will and commitment. That is the price of being part of a small town community where residents help and support each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Our next delegation is Tammy Rutherford. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you.
And just before you start, you have 10 minutes, and I'll let you know 1 minute out when you're getting there.
Wonderful. Mayor Waters, councillors, and staff of Centre Wellington. I am pleased that termites are on the agenda once again, and thank you for allowing me to speak on this topic, which has caused devastation to hundreds of homes in Fergus and Elora. You may find it of interest that while I was searching my notes to decide what to talk about this evening, the thing that spoke to me most was correspondence with mayoral and councillors in the past municipal elections. Not just from 2022, as most of you here present will know about, but from 2018 and from 2014. For the most part, it was acknowledged that indeed this is a serious problem in Centre Wellington. And most certainly, something should finally be done about it. In the time throughout these 3 elections, of which I've been advocating for action on this issue, 8 years have passed. Yet here we are today. And in those 8 years, termites have continued working 24 hours a day, 365 days of each of those years. The colonies have not only grown in numbers, they have most certainly also spread. And this will continue to happen until we actually do something, collectively as a community. Now, I want to assure you that the property owners in the termite zones have most certainly not just been sitting around doing nothing, waiting for the township to take action. All responsible homeowners have been spending thousands of dollars putting chemical barriers around their homes and their garages. They have been installing borate rods into their fence posts and parts of their decks that may have any wood soil contact. They've been removing stumps and much more. And I'm not even going to get into the details that repairs have cost for these very same proactive homeowners, which have cost thousands and thousands of more dollars. They are doing everything that they can, and yet they still need help. But why, you may ask, should controlling and preventing the spread of termites be a responsibility for all homeowners to share? Well, to those of you that live near a termite zone, did you know that an established termite colony will spread at the rate of about 1 residential property per year? And to those that think termites can't cross an asphalt road, well, it's just a matter of time before they'll find a root system and spread. And besides, as Ian alluded to, termites can fly. And in fact, we're coming up to swarming season. And to anyone that lives on the other side of town, well, to you, I ask, has anyone ever brought firewood to your property and it hasn't been burned straight away? Have you ever moved Muskoka chairs, picnic tables, dog houses, or sheds from one property to another? Have you ever shared plants or brought wood mulch onto your property? These are all innocent ways that termites can easily be spread throughout our community. Of course, no one would ever do this intentionally, but termites are known as the silent destroyer, and for good reason. They are not easily detected, and there is no doubt in my mind that there are properties in our community that are termite infested, and the homeowners are not even aware. So now, to offer some hope. The entomologist that conducted the termite surveys in Fergus and Elora in 2020 has had great success at termite management in the city of Guelph, as well as the township of Woolwich. Results from these projects indicate that this is the person we need to stop the spread and to reduce the number of termites in our community. And now is the time for action. Not only is the cost estimated by the township a true bargain, at approximately 94 cents per household per month, Most importantly, this particular person with a PhD in entomology is currently available and is very interested in this project. So I ask you today, please vote for option 2, to initiate a proactive termite management program. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Tammy. No. Thank you, Tammy. At this time, we'd like to invite up Kirk McElwain. Welcome, Kirk.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, Council, and staff for allowing me to say a few words. I don't have a lot to add to what Ian and Tammy have already said about why option 1 shouldn't really be considered an option. I'm disappointed it's still considered one, actually, after the years that we've been putting up with it, because it doesn't work. I've been involved with termites since about 2009, 2010, and in that time, the number of termite-infested homes in central Wellington are probably doubled. If they double over the next 10 years, the same as they have in the past 10, we're talking pretty major impact on our community. So I don't think we should be talking about the status quo at all. But what I really wanted to talk about this evening more than anything is, excuse me, through the years that I've been involved with termites, I have been involved with, I called up the PMRA through Michael Chong's office, arranged that, and they put me in touch with the termite committee that they were working with, and the chair of the termite committee was a gentleman by the name of Richard Murphy of Detna Pest Control in Toronto. That steering committee folded in 2016 when they were successful in getting Health Canada to approve a product called Centricon. And it has been approved now in Canada for 7 years. But the company that owns Centricon, for whatever reasons, decided it was too expensive to do the training and get it introduced into the Canadian marketplace. Until now, as of last Friday, I was talking to Richard's company again. They're expecting Centricon to be available to them next month, which is wonderful news because it's what Dr. Miles has been waiting for 10 years now. It's a different approach. It's still not free by any stretch of the imagination, and it's not quite a one and done solution, but it's a much improved solution. So all I really want to suggest this evening is that option 2 should be the only option considered, number 1. But number 2 is that option 2, the Woolwich report mentions that it's a long-term commitment. What I suggest is that the council or staff not make a long-term commitment for the technology that's available today. Instead, take into consideration that there might be a better technology available within the next short term. Apparently, Centricon is going to be available to Detna in Toronto because he's the person that's been working with them for so many years. And they're going to make it available to one more company in Canada, but it's going to be a national company. So I think you can almost guess who it's going to be, but I don't have any confirmation of that. But I did talk to the local office of Orkin in Cambridge, And they don't know anything about it yet, but they said they would check with the head office and see what their plans are. But that's, as I say, it's a new technology. It should be a less expensive technology in the long run, although it may be a bit more expensive up front because it requires a bunch of new drilling and installing monitors. So that's all I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kurt. Okay, we're going to go to item 8, consideration of reports. We have 8.1, healthcare professional recruitment update, and our CAO, Dan Wilson, is going to provide a report.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. So this report relates to an update on the healthcare professional recruitment initiative. As you will recall, in February, Council approved a resolution to make healthcare professional recruitment a priority, and for staff to work with relevant stakeholders to propose a healthcare professional recruitment approach that would involve the township. We've been having frequent meetings with our stakeholder group, which represents staff from Groves Hospital, township staff, county staff, Centre Wellington Chamber of Commerce staff, and we have been working on an overall approach to healthcare physician recruitment. Page 2 of my report outlines a high level of the phases that we're currently working on. Phase 1 being accommodation for healthcare professionals. Phase 2, office space. Phase 3, other incentives beyond accommodation and office space. Phase 4, marketing, tourism, and communication on this initiative. And Phase 5, funding for the overall initiative on healthcare professionals. While we have a lot more work to do on this initiative, all 5 phases, we felt it was prudent to come forward to Council now about the accommodation piece of the initiative. And before I go any further, I'm going to invite Angela Stanley, President and CAO of the Wellington Healthcare Alliance, to explain the accommodation piece.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you for having me back to Council to speak about healthcare recruitment for our town and the communities that we serve. Accommodation is the most pressing issue we have at the moment with recruitment. We see a significant number of medical students, students from other health professions, and residents coming through. And we've also increased the number of locums. So locums are physicians who come for a short period of time to provide service at the hospital or in primary care. And it's a fantastic way for them to get to know the community and hopefully establish a permanent practice here with us. But we've seen a significant number of locums increased over the past 18 months. And one of the biggest assets that a community can have is stable housing for those locums to come into. Elora and Fergus are tourist towns, as you all know, and so establishing regular affordable housing on a consistent level has been a challenge for us. And really, it has been one of our key success rates in getting locums to return on an ongoing basis. So we're starting to build that pool of solid locums, but ongoing supportive housing is absolutely necessary for us to continue to do that. And working in partnership is the most sustainable way in order to do that on a go-forward basis.
Thank you, Angela. So in terms of accommodation, what we're suggesting is that we utilize the farmhouse located at 965 Garshore Street in Fergus. This is the location of the future operations center. The house currently is not being used, and we do recognize that at some point the operations center would be in a construction phase and an operation stage, and the house may not work well for healthcare professional recruitment in the long term, but it'll at least get us started on this and provide at least a temporary solution for the next few years. We're hoping that the initiative that we're working on now in terms of accommodation, including the furniture and fixtures and programming, could work well with any site if we need to move this to another site once the operations center is under construction. You'll see from page 3 in the report that we have been very busy on this. The stakeholder group, including Grove staff, hospital staff, chamber staff, county staff have been working really well together and have made a lot of strides on this initiative. The local businesses have stepped up to the plate and are helping us with appliances, furniture, kitchenwares required to make sure that this site is operational as soon as possible. I think the common theme here is that businesses recognize the need and the priority associated with finding healthcare professionals in our community. In terms of costs, we do recognize that we'll probably see an increase in costs such as utilities, insurance, legal costs. We are looking to partners to provide assistance with this as much as possible, so we're trying to mitigate that cost to the township. But we feel like this is something we should do as a first step to provide this accommodation space. We do provide $20,000 a year to healthcare physician recruitment, and right now a lot of that is being spent on accommodation. And if we can provide this, then that $20,000 can be used elsewhere for positive initiatives on healthcare physician recruitment. I'd leave it there and happy to address any questions from council. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan and Angela. Comments, questions from council? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Through your Mayor Waters, I'm really happy to see how county is involved too. They're going to cover costs of mattresses. Lots of staff have been involved, staff time, I'm sure. So this looks great. Thank you so much.
Any other comments, questions from council? Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. So can we maybe, like, if this all works out and everything, can this be something that's set up as like a pilot program that then we can overlay onto other properties that maybe the township has that may become in excess as the operations center comes up?
Yes, great questions, and through Mayor Waters. What I suggest is we use this site now as the operations center is being designed, and then when the operations center is nearing construction, we'll have to come forward with other options in terms of alternate locations, and we can address one or multiple locations at that time and moving beyond this site. So yes, we can use this as a pilot and look forward to other sites in the future.
Council, any other questions, comments? Thank you, Angela and Dan. We have a recommendation that Council, Township of Centre Wellington, approve the use of the township-owned farmhouse located at 965 Garth Shore Street, Fergus, as accommodation space for healthcare professionals, as outlined in Report CAO 2023-07, dated April 24th, 2023. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Craddock, a seconder. Councillor McDonald. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you. We will go down to item 8.2. Healthy Care Community Design Baseline Project. And we have a report from Mary Ann. Anna. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, through you to members of council. The report before you is an information report that we're bringing to council's attention. It is called the Healthy Community Design Baseline Project, and it was a project that staff undertook in consultation with Wellington-Dufferin-Guelph Public Health several years ago. It began in around 2016, 2017, and it was a lengthy process whereby we worked with public health to try to determine key indicators of health for the community, and basically based on the built environment. So it culminated in a report in 2019 that is attached to this report before you. And it was endorsed by council for release to the public at that time to be used as a resource document. So we're bringing it back to council so that you're aware of the report, particularly in strategic planning for moving forward. The project attempts to identify the key indicators and then use them over time to measure the success and change that we undergo as a community. So I intended to help identify priorities for healthy community design and plan for healthy growth. And with that, I will introduce Cheyne. She's the environmental health specialist from Public Health, and she is also here with her colleague Anna Vanderland. So Bo will present the background of the project, the key findings, and then the recommendations, and then I'll come back just to talk about some next steps.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. And good evening, Mayor Waters and members of council. I'm very pleased to be here today to provide an overview of the Healthy Community Design Baseline Project. As Mariana mentioned, this was a collaboration between the Township and Public Health, completed in 2019, and I'm pleased to provide an overview tonight. So, we'll spend much of the next 10 minutes or so talking about healthy, hold on, let me make sure I know how to use this, there we go, healthy built environments and also community design. So, the built environment refers to the human-made or human-modified physical surroundings in which we live, work, and play. This includes our neighborhoods, our communities, and the way that those are designed and connected together. And neighborhood design and community design has the potential to influence and support health and healthy behaviors. So ultimately, this project aimed to collect local data to help us develop baseline measures or indicators of community design that we could monitor over time to look at changes. So, some of the more detailed objectives of the baseline work involved assessing residents' preferences related to community design, determining how residents reported traveling in their neighborhoods, gaining an understanding of residents' knowledge of the relationship between design and health, and lastly, to collect local measures of the physical design of the community. So, to help us achieve those objectives, we undertook 2 different types of data collection activities. The first one was a survey, and the survey was used to collect resident perspectives around community design and health. It also asked questions about their travel behaviors. The second component involved mapping local data about the physical design of the community. So this data got at things like sidewalks, green spaces, and the proximity of residents to different destinations. So based on the types of data that I just described and the types of survey questions that you'll see in the coming slides, the focus of this project looked at Fergus, Elora, and Salem. So in this slide, you'll see just a subset of the physical design indicators that were included in the larger report. I encourage you to check out the full report for the more comprehensive list of data that was collected. In the report, these physical design indicators and survey questions are organized under different chapters. And those chapters are based on the framework features you see on this table on the left-hand side: neighborhood design, transportation networks, natural environments, and food systems. And then just a few examples of the physical design indicators are on the right-hand side of the table. Things like dwelling density and intersection density, and the percentage of residential dwellings that were within 800 meters, which is roughly a 10-minute walk, of different destinations. There's also data on trails, on green space. And we collected data to help us assess local access to healthy food sources. And that was done by using an index called the Modified Retail Food Environment Index. So diving into just a sampling of the findings, we'll start with neighborhood design and density. So a number of indicators and survey questions tied into density, and this is because compact communities with high residential and employment density increases the proximity of residents to different amenities. And this can help promote active transportation, which includes walking and biking, to different destinations that you might access on a day-to-day basis, like work, school, recreation, and other services. So taking a look at a few of the results from one of the survey questions, shown here are a pair of images that were included in one of the survey questions. Residents saw the pair of images as you're seeing on this slide, accompanied by the descriptive text. So on the top, you'll see neighborhood A is a denser community with a mixture of different housing types that are closer together. On the bottom, neighborhood B is a less dense neighborhood with single detached homes that are spaced further apart. And residents were simply asked, which of these do you prefer? And if you take a look on the right-hand side, most, 84%, preferred low density design. Next, residents were asked a series of questions that looked at whether they felt one of these neighborhoods would be more likely to encourage certain behaviors, like walking and biking more, socializing with neighbors more, driving less, and just generally feeling safer in their community. And 69% gave answers indicating that they perceived density as encouraging of those healthy behaviors. So taking a look at the survey results, they seem to suggest that residents have an understanding that there is a relationship between community design and that can potentially encourage healthy behaviors. Nonetheless, most prefer a less dense neighborhood. So one of the recommendations that came from the report was to explore strategies for further raising that existing awareness around the benefits of compact design in communities. Next, we'll touch briefly on neighborhood design and connectivity. There were also several indicators and questions asked that were tied into connectivity. And this is because street and sidewalk connectivity helps link residential, commercial, and recreation locations together, encourages residents to walk and bike more, use their car less, has the potential to increase social connections between neighbors, and all of this can help contribute to feelings of safety. So this slide provides a couple of examples of what the physical design indicators, when mapped, looked like in the report themselves. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a map showing intersection density across the community. The darker blue areas show areas with higher intersection density, which can help support connectivity. On the right-hand side, you'll see a map showing the sidewalk to road ratio as it varies across the community. And the darker blue areas here show areas where there is a higher density of sidewalks, which can also help support connectivity. Looking at both maps, it seems to suggest that generally speaking, the more central areas of Fergus and Elora have higher connectivity. So mapping indicators like these, as well as others that are in the report, can help us to identify areas where connectivity could potentially be improved. But moreover, it gives us a snapshot of what these measures looked like a few years ago when this data was collected, enabling us to visualize and monitor changes to these measures over time. So we'll take one last quick peek at active travel-friendly neighborhoods, which fell in the Transportation Networks chapter. Active travel refers to any mode of travel that uses physical activity, for example, walking or biking. And good active transportation networks promote active living, create safe and equitable access to amenities for all residents, and can potentially provide environmental benefits through reduced car use. And good active transportation networks include things like street connectivity, continuous sidewalks, and compact design where amenities are close to where people live. So in the survey, to take a look at how residents actually traveled within their neighborhood, residents were shown a list of 12 location types. These are things like school, work, groceries, parks, and green spaces. And when looking at that list of 12 locations, residents were asked to identify which of those locations they felt that they could walk or bike to from their home. 80% of residents in Fergus and 64% of residents in Elora and Salem indicated that they felt that they could walk or bike to at least 5 of the 12 locations provided. Next, residents were shown a shortened list from that 12. Specifically, they were shown a list of the locations that they had just identified as being walkable or bikeable from their home. So looking at that shortened list, they were asked, did you walk or bike to any of those locations in the last few months? And almost 70% reported walking or biking to at least 2/3 of those locations that they had just reported as active travel friendly or walkable or bikeable, which was a really encouraging finding and will be interesting to look at that indicator over time to see how it might change. So, moving on to recommendations from this work, it involves sharing the findings with council and staff, using the findings to inform policy updates and development, and to consider developing communication resources for further raising that existing awareness around the benefits of compact design. And that last recommendation leads us into the first bullet here on the next step slide, which is developing a public awareness campaign on the benefits of building complete and compact communities. And also, we very much look forward to further reconnecting with staff here to revisit this baseline work and determine the best path forward to continue to monitor these indicators over time. So thank you so much for your time. It is greatly appreciated, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Very interesting work, and now I vaguely remember taking the survey, I think, so that's good. It's all coming back. I'm just curious about the age responses. Like, did you get responses from children, or how were youth involved in the project?
The survey was actually only open to residents 15 and up, I believe. It may be 15 plus or minus 1. So it did not include youth.
Yep.
We do have data on the age groups that responded in those responses. I don't have it right at my fingertips, but it's within the larger report.
In the larger report, perfect. That might answer my question, but I was curious maybe from your professional opinion, like just thinking about school zones and trying to get those to be more active and safe so that kids can actually walk and or bike or roller skate, whatever they want to do, back and forth to school. If you had any thoughts on how that would be included in this report or in the next steps.
So there were a few different reasons that the survey was intended for 14 plus, and that conversation did occur. There was some questions that tied into what could give us some information about school travel, but it would be as reported by someone who was 15 plus. But as part of revisiting the baseline work and looking at moving forwards, while the purpose of the baseline work is to get to repeat it to a certain degree as it was done the first time, that does not mean that there won't be improvements made each time round, and there could be potential for looking further at that.
To you, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll just say one thing. I thought you were going to say nobody took advantage of it when you said 70% used visit 2 options. I was waiting for you to hit us with nobody took it, so thank you. A couple of things come to mind, which is something we've been thinking about as we're doing our strat planning. When we look at options, have we included as we look ahead, or is there any thought in the studies as for next steps that include incentives like car sharing, drive sharing, down to grocery stores, things like that? I think we need to reteach and maybe for the first time in many places. So I'd be interested in looking at what kind of options might we include while we educate to get people a little more engaged. My previous role was directly with the school boards, and one of the biggest comments is around that school travel. And I'm glad you didn't ask this, the under 14, because many of them will complain because they haven't understood the value yet, and maybe perhaps some of the parents haven't yet understood the value of active transportation. And I wonder if we would ask this question after some deeper and more involved communication and education, might the answers look different? And finally, I wonder if you've communicated with the school boards on this piece.
So I'll start with the last part. We did communicate the findings of the work. This was actually work that we did with several communities. And so the findings were shared with the local school boards. Specifically, I do remember interacting with a couple of the planning staff at the school boards at the time, a number of years ago now. But sort of getting at your earlier question about alternative, like car share programs, etc. One thing that was incorporated into the survey were not only questions, so a lot of the questions came from other work in other jurisdictions, and it was adapted for local needs, but some questions were just brought in to sort of collect some data that township was interested in at that point in time. And so we could incorporate new questions asking about interest in certain programs or initiatives. There were questions around car ownership and bike ownership within the 2018-19 work. And so there is some baseline data around that kind of thing, which would, I think, tie into looking forwards at alternative modes of sharing vehicles or bikes, etc.
I think what's exciting, with your permission, Mr. Mayor, is that this will marry directly with a lot of the parking work that we're looking at. And I look forward to continuing our work with you to see how we move forward in a positive way.
Well, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Adams.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Just a question either to yourself or to staff, perhaps, I'm not sure. So the report, it was initially presented in 2019, but I think it was based on, the survey was actually completed in 2017.
Yes.
Based on the 2016 census data, I think was used at that time, the full report said. So we know that our community has changed tremendously in that time. And I think the fuller report said that it would be the actual survey and collection of the data that will be repeated again in 5 years. Obviously, we had some
bit of a
blockers in there, but we are at that time now. So I'm just kind of curious, because I think I read somewhere else it would be 5 years after the report, which would be next year. But initially, it looked like we wanted to get that data survey every 5 years.
Yes.
And we know we have a new census as well. So I'm just kind of curious on the timing of like when that next survey would be, is being planned.
Because the report was published in 2019 and the timing of when the pandemic started, there wasn't really a comprehensive debrief that occurred after the project that really needs to occur first before launching another round of measurements to make sure we're taking into consideration any changes in the landscape, not only the landscape locally, but data availability. There's actually a lot of interesting data sources that have emerged over the last year or so that we could take advantage of, but assessing which ones are most appropriate, fit the needs fit local needs, will take a little bit of time. And so the reason the point on the last slide indicated that we're really excited to looking forward to revisiting this work is because, yes, the intent was to measure that baseline work a little bit sooner, but we also want to get it right.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, I was really surprised at the high percentage for low density. It was
the preference for low density.
Yeah, that was surprising, especially we're in 2023 now. So when we say, yes, many changes have occurred probably since the survey, I was surprised. So that would mean that folks are happy to spread over agriculture land instead of intensification or gentle intensification. So I was really surprised to see that, which is why we have it, right? So I would be looking forward to seeing this addressed again for sure in new results. Yeah.
I wish I had the numbers for other communities at my hand, but I don't.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I think it's not unreasonable for individuals to have a certain preference, but to also appreciate that something different could be better as well.
Yeah.
For other reasons, perhaps.
Okay.
Like the bigger pictures.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Great report. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Council, any more comments, questions? Okay.
Thanks, Bo. So just to jump in on the next steps, as stated, we will look to doing an education campaign, and that's to sort of bridge that gap between people's preferences versus what they, so to speak, know would be the healthier approach, and try to disseminate some information on the benefits of densification and intensification. So what it will be or look like is over the coming weeks or months, we will look to preparing the material, and then it will be like a social media campaign. So it'll go out in various forms, and we'll direct people back to the public health page where there will be a lot more information that people can read. And so that's the first stage of the project. And then, as just discussed, there was a bit of a delay with revisiting all of the information. But we will be doing that soon, and hopefully be bringing a report to council again in the near future to revisit. So I think that's it. That's the information that we had today for council.
Any comments or questions for Mariana? Okay. We have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington receives the information staff report PLN 2023-19 dated April 24th, 2023 regarding an update on the Healthy Community Design Baseline Project. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilton. All those in favor? So moved. We're going to go to item, I think it is, I believe, 8.9.
You brought the termite one up for it to hear.
Yeah. Isn't that what that one? Sorry? Yep, 8.9,
Sorry.
yes.
Yep.
Yes. And bring that one forward to, so termite management direction report. And we have a report from our CEO, Dan Wilson. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. So to start off the discussion on this report, I'm going to go through a recent timeline of events since 2016. So in 2016, the Council of the Day did direct staff to review its approach to termite management. At the conclusion of that review, Council adopted a more passive approach to termite management that focused around education and assisting residents in preventing the spread of termites from a passive perspective. At the time, the Property Standards Bylaw was also amended to include pest control, which included termites. And also at that same time, the township discontinued the practice of providing termite inspections as private businesses that are trained and insured to do that were providing that service. In 2020, the council at the time directed staff to look at termite management again. The recommendation at that point was to undertake a survey of properties where termites are known to exist. The results of that are attached to my report. There are two different zones identified. The red zone is where termite activity is either detected or inferred, and the blue zone is where activity is possible. So in total, red zone, as of 2020, we had 259 properties. Blue zone, 219 properties, totaling 478 properties within both the red and blue zone at the time. And just as a point of comparison, we have about 12,500 households in Centre Wellington. After that survey was presented to council, we were directed to do a request for proposal to look at termite management activities. The scope of work of that RFP is identified on page 2 of my report, which included spring and fall nematode treatments to properties in the red zones only, provide termite education services, spring and fall wood waste cleanup, and reporting on properties that required enforcement by the township. So we did do a request for proposal at the time. We only received 2 responses at that point, showing to us that this is a very specialized field in terms of services and vendors providing those services to the township. Unfortunately, we were unable to negotiate with the successful vendor, so there was no award of that proposal. In January of this year, we were coming forward with a report to council recommending a grant program to provide residents with funding to assist in termite management activities. We did defer that report at the last minute. Moving forward, what we've concluded there are various opinions, and we've been access to a lot of those opinions around termite management services, what's effective, not effective, whether we should be in the business of termite management services or not in the business of termite management services. So we felt at that time it's probably in our best interest to take a step back and then report to council with the basic question of, do you want to be in the termite management business or do you not want to be in the termite management business? And then we can take things from there. So the 2 options that we are proposing to council is a passive approach, which is option 1, which is what we're currently doing, which focuses on education and doing an updated termite survey periodically to track the movement of termites within Centre Wellington. This is the approach that many municipalities do follow for those that do have termites. where option 2 is the proactive approach. And this is where the township would play a proactive role in trying to reduce the population of termites in Centre Wellington. If council is looking to move towards option 2, what we do suggest is a request for proposal, not similar to the previous RFP that was not followed through with, but a new RFP where we ask the experts how to move forward with termite management services. In the previous RFP, we had defined a scope of work and asked vendors to bid on that. In this case, let's leave that to the experts and have them tell us how they would work on reducing the termite population in Centre Wellington. We have outlined the proposed evaluation criteria if option 2 is provided. So it is a negotiated RFP, and something that happens in extremely rare circumstances. We're suggesting before approval that the delegation would have a discussion with council to ask council-related questions. We do not know at this point how effective a proactive program would be in Centre Wellington, or the cost associated with a program. We are in this report comparing ourselves to the Township of Woolwich, which is a neighbor of ours who went through a proactive program or continues to go through a proactive program. And extrapolating their costing data would indicate that we could be looking at a multi-year program totaling in excess of $1 million to go through a proactive program. If we were to fund that over a 5-year period, we'd be looking at a 1% tax increase to fund that over the 5 years. So 1% in year 1, and then that would give us the funding over the multi-year program. In terms of financial implications, option 1 does not require any impacts on staffing or financial resources, as it's passive in nature. We can continue to do the termite surveys periodically, and our building permit revenue can fund those surveys. It is an eligible cost under building permit fees and the legislation on that. Under option 2, we do suggest that it could be in the range of $1 million, but we won't really know until we go through the RFP process and see what scope of works are being offered and then the associated costs and time periods on that. This cannot be funded through building permit reserve money, so we'd be looking at taxation dollars or OLG funds to fund the termite management program. We do have $200,000 already set aside from the previous budgets and previous council to go towards this, but we are suggesting that either that 1% tax increase in the 2024 budget, or you'll be deferring projects that were put into the capital program for 2024 and beyond to fund this program. And just keep in mind, that's assuming $1 million costing on this initiative. We would adjust that through option 2 as we receive RFP submissions. With that, I will open the floor up to questions from council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. So have we had to use any of the $200,000 to do what we've done up to now for staff?
Through Mayor Council, no, we have the full $200,000 available to us. The survey work and all of the work associated with termite management to date was prior to the $200,000 being budgeted for.
Okay, and I just have one more question. And through the RFP program, are we hoping for more candidates that can do this? And are we part of the when the RFP goes out, are we going to stipulate you must provide your own project management of the entire project? So we're not putting that burden on staff because we're not termite experts. So, yeah.
Yes, good questions. And through Mayor Waters, we're hoping by making the scope of work open-ended in that we're requesting the scope of work from the vendors, that would get us a little more interest. We were very specific in our scope of work in the first RFP and said we wanted nematode treatment, education, debris pickup, and it was very, very specific, and we only had 2 responses. So we're hoping if we open it up, we'll get a little bit more of a response. And We are concerned about the impact on staff resourcing, so we would propose to include project management services in the RFP so that the successful vendor would look after that for us.
Okay, and in light of one of the delegations that there's a new product coming out that could be used in this possible process, will we be putting that in the RFP at all? Can we? Or could we delay the RFP knowing that it's coming down in about a month? Because that sounded pretty good too.
Through Mayor Waters, what I would suggest is we keep the RFP requirements fairly open-ended and asking for solutions from the vendors. If there are vendors that have new technologies, please tell staff about that. We can invite them to the RFP process. And we can, I like the suggestion from Mr. McElwain about being open to changes in technology if we go that route as well. So that's something we would consider.
Councillor Evoy?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, and thank you, sir. I'm wondering about the comment, are we or are we not in the business of termite control? I'm not sure this would directly affect only our homeowners. We have a lot of historical and cultural buildings in our community, and I don't know enough about termites to say that by supporting homeowners that we wouldn't also be taking care of our county and township-owned properties. I don't know how much risk they are, but we're not talking about that. We're just talking about individual homes. And I'd also like some more information. I've lived here a long time, and are we being informed if you're in an area? Like, I literally just looked at the map to see where my house lands. How are we going about informing the community whether or not they're in red or blue or white areas?
Up until this report being done, like the termite survey, we haven't had accurate information about where termites did and did not exist. There was, in the report, it alludes to a program where there was some government grants available back in the 70s, and I think that formed the basis of a little bit of general knowledge about maybe where they might be, but it all depended on that grant program. Yeah. When the grant program died, there was no keeping up to date of mapping of township activity, nor was it something that we were confident we could publish with any accuracy. So we have the termite report on our information page on the township website, and there's been a lot of discussion about the termite report in the last couple of years, but prior to that, we didn't have accurate information.
So follow up through you, Mr. Chair. So would it be prudent for us to, even via social media, to invite people to visit that so they can find out whether or not their homes or the areas where their homes are at risk and where they would lie in so far as the color zone?
We could do that with communications, but again, we have limited staff resources to produce this material.
Thank you, Councillor Evoy. Councillor Wilton?
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I just wanted to comment on the part of the NRFP process that you'd have project milestone off-ramps. So I think that's a great idea. So would you be looking for the applicants in their proposals to be explaining what they think would be reasonable off-ramps, or would staff be working with them once they submit the proposal? So just to tell a little bit more about that.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Wilton. In terms of the off-ramps, we'd be looking at formulating this to determine what success rates we would have and how those would be measurable through the RFP process, and affording the township an opportunity to not get engaged in a long-term contractual obligation should we not see the desired results.
Councillor Jefferson?
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I also noticed in reading about Woolwich and Guelph that they have a termite control bylaw in place. Is there anything that we're looking at doing if we decide to go ahead with this that we can have like a termite control bylaw that would possibly include our education services, preventative measures, self-reporting, and mandatory disclosures?
We do have a termite control bylaw now and have had for some time. I think it goes back to 2000. which gives the chief building official authority to order treatment. In some of the other, the example with the city of Guelph, because they employ or have employed termite control officer staff position, their bylaw is much more comprehensive in terms of the things that they require. And so ours is focused on giving the chief building official the authority he has under the Ontario Building Code to order treatment and order people to repair a building or order a builder to use termite resistant construction. But we don't do the things that the city of Guelph is able to do with staff.
Councillor Evoy?
Apologies, I just thought of a question when you said that, through you, Mr. Chair. If somebody has termites and can't afford to fix them and then is putting their neighbors at risk, what's the next step from our lens, or is there a next step?
Through Mayor Waters, it really depends which approach you're going forward with. If you're going with the passive approach, option one, our job would be to educate people in the termite zones on what their roles and responsibilities are, and we would do the termite survey periodically. Under option two, it would be more proactive, and we'd be treating the properties through a program. So it really depends which option council goes with.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I'll make a few comments. We've had delegations speaking of their experience with it. Obviously, two councillors, former councillors, who've been dealing with this question for a long time. In both cases, they spoke very strongly for option two. I think their input is valuable. In terms of also citizens, we had Tammy Rutherford, who's also quite familiar and has been dealing with this question for a very long time in terms of this. When we talk about 478 properties, and that's grown to that within those potential areas, that represents about 4.2% of the housing stock or building stock within our community. And if you look at, you just sort of do a simple math equation, and Adam will either nod his head or not, but that's probably represents about $300 million impact on our community in terms of those potential properties which are exposed to this. So it is a big issue in our community. It has grown. I know individuals in this community have spent close to $30,000 on treatment within their homes, and for whatever reason, it seems to me that this we haven't got a handle on this for what we've been doing in the past, and this requires more of a comprehensive approach if we really want to deal with this that way. Both communities of Guelph and our neighbors to the west here are dealing with programs because they realize that there is probably some merit definitely in approaching it in a little more holistic and community approach. So I'll leave it at that. So any other comments or questions? So we have in front of us two options. We have option one, option two. So I'm not, yes, would you? Yeah, we can do that, yes. So do I have okay, yes, go ahead. Councillor Wilton, would you care to move an option?
I would move that we move forward with option two, that the Council of the Township of Centre Wellington.
Councillor Evoy, seconder. Any comments, questions? No? Okay, let's move forward. Let's vote on that. All those in favor? So moved. That's option two. Thank you, staff, and thank you, delegations, for your input. Okay, we're back to 8.3, I think it is. Is that correct? Yes. Zoning amendment, RZ 0223, decision report 465 Garafraxa Street, Fergus. And Mariana, welcome back.
Thank you. Through you, the subject of the rezoning application before you is the property located at 465 Garafraxa Street West in Fergus. The property is currently vacant. It is a 0.4 hectare, 1 acre in size property, and the application proposes to rezone it from FD, future development, to R4 residential exception, to allow intensification of the site for 32 three-story stacked townhouse residential units to facilitate a Habitat for Humanity development that will offer home ownership to low-income families. These zoning exceptions would recognize a reduced side yard at a pinch point due to the irregular shape of the lot, and slightly reduced private amenity areas to allow a greater number of units on the site. Several technical studies were received in support of the application, including a planning justification report, which is attached to the staff report, and it provides the summary of all the technical studies that were received. Staff is in agreement with the conclusions made in the planning report. A public meeting on the application was held on March 29th as required by the Planning Act. At that meeting, some neighboring residents made submissions, primarily regarding sidewalks and drainage. Staff addressed these concerns in the report, but will note that there will be sidewalks connecting the development to the larger network so that residents can walk safely to schools and other amenities such as parks. In addition, the grading and drainage will not negatively impact the adjacent properties and the stormwater pond to the north, because all of the stormwater is confirmed to be outlet to Garafraxa Street at the front. Further details such as potential trail connections, amenity areas, bicycle parking have been noted through the meeting and will be addressed during the detailed site plan design stage. And the site can also be adequately serviced. The county has reviewed the application, has no objections. And after reviewing the application and all the input received, staff is of the opinion that the rezoning application meets the applicable policies and regulations in the provincial, county, and township plans, and that the application will help to contribute to the supply and mix of much-needed housing options. As such, staff recommends that the application be approved and that the corresponding bylaw be enacted. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, comments, questions? Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. When we had the public meeting, we didn't really discuss storage for families that will probably be living in this. Can that be added like at site plan level, bicycle storage? I see they're put aside outdoor storage, but that's not really great.
Yes, through you, during the site plan stage, we'll look at detailed design, and these items have been noted, and I know the planner is also here, so we can discuss those things at site plan stage.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Council, any other comments, questions? Yes, Councillor Adams.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Just want to thank staff. I think this is a great project to be seeing coming ahead. And really happy to see that the sidewalk concerns and the drainage concerns that were brought up in the public meeting have been addressed. So thank you.
Any other comments, questions from council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mariana. We have a recommendation that the Council Township of Centre Wellington approves application RZ 0223 for zoning amendment and gives 3 readings to necessary bylaw. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, seconder, Councillor McDonald. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you. We're going to 8.4, application for an exemption to the noise bylaw. Who is going to speak to that? Yes.
So the current noise bylaw allows for any person to make an application to council to grant an exemption to the schedule of time for when noise is permitted. We generally get a handful of these requests each year for those one-time events, such as weddings or anniversary parties that people hold at their homes, to allow for amplification of music or microphone systems from 11 p.m. till 1 a.m. It is a requirement that the applicant does notify their neighbors, and in this case they have done so, and we've received no feedback at this time.
Council, comments, questions? Yes, go ahead.
Through Mayor Waters. Just, yeah, I was just curious about that, just clarification. So at the time, there's a requirement for them to notify their neighbors, and then there's a certain amount of time for the neighbors to submit a question or any concerns?
There's no time frame outlined in the bylaw, so it really is dependent on when the request comes in. In all the years I've been doing this, I have not received a complaint for a noise bylaw exemption of this sort, and had no concerns with the neighbors.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none. We have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approves a request from Tracy Hudson for an exemption to bylaw 500105, the noise bylaw for the Township of Centre Wellington, to permit the amplification of music at 200 Victoria Crescent, Elora, on June the 10th, 2023, between 11 and 1 a.m. for a wedding reception. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald. Seconder, Councillor Adams. All those in favor? So moved. Item 8.5, appointment of municipal law enforcement officer, parking bylaw. Report from, is it Carrie?
Yes, through you, the report is a result of a request from the County of Wellington wanting some control for bylaw enforcement in order to manage their properties during winter storm events. They found that with due notice and potential enforcement that they would be able to have the cars removed and the snow maintenance done. And if not, the ability to ticket is their desire. So the bylaw before you allows their staff to ticket after they've given due notice and the cars are failed to be removed. It gives them the ability to ticket in that event.
Council, comments, questions? Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question, actually two. So if a storm comes in all of a sudden, or they need to, it happens in the middle of the night, do they warn or remind the residents that this is a constant thing, you can't park here, so that before there's an emergency and they need to go through, that's already been done?
I think it's my understanding that it's after the event and with proper notice. Either I think they post it on their bulletin boards, or they would give individual notice per unit to remove the car by such and such a date, so that they can come in and do the notice. It's not necessarily preempt. I think it's after the event, and when there's a buildup and people are unable to maneuver around.
Thank you for clarifying. And the follow-up to that is, would this same bylaw officer be used for ticketing other purposes, or is this just for winter wear?
Well, I imagine if there's spring cleanup, they could potentially do it there. I think the main purpose is snow removal in the wintertime in order for them, but it's just their staff, their property management staff, that would be allowed to do it.
Got it, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council? Okay. We have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a bylaw for the appointment of municipal law enforcement officers for the Corporation of the Township of Centre Wellington for the purpose of enforcing the Township Parking Bylaw number 5005 as amended. Mover, Councillor Wilton. Seconder, Councillor Jefferson. All those in favor? So moved. Item 8.6, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Through you, again, this is a report as a result of a request from the County of Wellington to, they've amended the terms of reference for the Accessibility Committee. It's a joint committee that all member municipalities belong to, or a representative from the member municipalities sits on this committee. And I think through COVID and through some changes, the committee kind of lost momentum, and this is an attempt to bring it back and to make sure all the member municipalities have representation on the committee, and that staff is also involved, and there's a connect between the staff and the committee, and council staff and the committee. So the first step is to adopt the terms of reference. And then as time goes on, membership changes, the goal is to make sure that all the representation is equitable across the county. So the first step is the adoption of the terms of reference, which are before you today.
Council, comments, questions? Seeing none, recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington adopt County of Wellington Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, AAC, terms of reference as attached to the report from the Manager of Legislative Services and Municipal Clerk dated April 24th, 2023, and that the Manager of Legislative Services and Municipal Clerk be assigned member of staff to attend the ACC meetings. Do I have a mover? Yes, Councillor Evoy, seconder. Councillor McDonald, all those in favor? So moved. Item 8.7, RFP 1523 Union Street Sewage Pumping Station Expansion. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you, this report provides recommendations and seeks council approval for award of request for proposal 15-23 regarding the Union Street Sewage Pumping Station Expansion Municipal Class Environment Assessment Study. Recommendations are that council authorize award for request for proposal 15-23 to MTE Consultants, Inc. at a contract price of $124,711.60, excluding HST, and that the project be funded through the updated report COR 23-41. The RFP was issued in accordance with the Township's purchasing and procurement bylaw. There were 9 registered plan takers and 3 responses received. Responses were scored by the selection committee, and the award recommended herein represents award to the highest scored proponent. Award of this will require a budget top-up of just north of $40,000 and is recommended to be facilitated predominantly through the Wastewater Development Charge Reserve Fund. And with your permission, Mayor Waters, I'll turn it over to Colin Baker to provide some project scope and answer any questions that council may have on a technical nature.
Great, thanks Adam, and through Mayor Waters. So yeah, the Union Street Pumping Station, it's an existing pumping station. It's a small, very small station is there currently, servicing Craighead, Braeside neighborhood in Fergus. And so the long-term plan is to expand this station in order to service the South Fergus secondary plan area. So these are the lands kind of bounded by Guelph Street, Second Line, Scotland Street, so that large development area. So yeah, Class EA is required to kind of lay the groundwork for the future expansion.
Council, comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, we have a recommendation of the Council of Township of Centre Wellington award request for proposal 1523 Union Street Sewage Pumping Station Expansion Municipal Class Environment Assessment Study to MTE Consultant Inc. at a total upset limit of $124,711.60, excluding HST, and that the project funding allocation be as shown in Report Core 2023-41 dated 24 April 2023. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Adams, seconder. Councillor Craddock. All those in favor? So moved. Item 8.8, operating results. We're going to welcome Mark, Mr. Brady, to the podium. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you. This is a good news report. The township was able to show a very small surplus in 2022, even though we were faced with a highly inflationary economic environment. So the 2022 tax support operating fund surplus ended up being $31,130. This represents a 0.1% variance from the total tax supported operating budget of about $31 million. Surplus is largely due to, and I've just listed off a few things here, but the report goes into much more detail, but investment income was significantly higher than budgeted. Inflation's a bit of a double-edged sword.
the interest rates were significantly higher. We were able to renew our GICs at than what they matured. There was also unfilled positions in numerous positions, or in various departments. Supplementary taxation revenue was also higher than expected. Planning revenue exceeded expectations, and interest and penalties revenue on outstanding tax receivable was higher than expected. The favorable variances were offset by some negative variances as well. Significant price increases for fuel and road maintenance materials, such as sand and salt, had a negative impact, as did fleet repair expenditures due to an aging fleet, and there was also some significant tax write-offs during the year. Attachment A to the report summarizes variances from budget by division, and then attachment B goes on to explain the nature of those variances. So in common with most past years when we've had a surplus, staff are recommending again that the 2022 year-end tax support operating fund surplus of approximately $31,000 be transferred to the general capital reserve, and it then will be used to support current and future capital projects.
Thank you, Mark. Council, comments, questions? Yes, Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just one question. The surplus is, if the positions had been filled in those various departments, we wouldn't be in such a positive position, correct? So is that a concern for next year, or?
That is correct. We probably, if some of the positions had been filled on January 1 or you know, even in the first quarter, some of them, yeah, it probably would have turned us into a deficit. Okay. Is it an impact on the next year? No, because they're already built into the budget, those positions.
Any other comments, questions from council? Okay. Thank you, Mark. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. It might be for Dan, but maybe you can answer it. But I noticed one of the negatives was the loss of, or that you didn't have rental income for the 205 Queen Street. So I'm just curious if that's rental ready, or if that's still a situation where work needs to be done to kind of generate rental income.
Through Mayor Waters, the intent in 2022 was to rent out the top floor of 205 Queen Street. We had a potential tenant lined up, and then at the last minute they changed their mind. We were not able to, due to timing, look for other tenants in 2022, and in 2023 we've assumed zero rental income under the premise that either staff will use the floor or it might be provided for healthcare professionals.
Council, any other comments, questions? Yes, Councillor Evoy.
Just briefly through you, Mayor Waters, I appreciate you sharing the good news, but I think when I look at the overall pieces, how we got to that 31, there's certainly some lines that are worthy of a little bit closer reflection moving forward, and it brings a lot of different questions to mind why we have saved money in the areas that we have. And I want to be clear that this year was good on the HR line for sure, but there are things that I think are worthy of future discussion as to why we're left with more money. What didn't we do, and what do we need to do moving forward? So.
Thank you, Councillor Evoy. Any other comments, questions? Okay, we have a recommendation. Thank you, Mark. Recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington receive Report Core 2023-37, being a report on the 2022 operating results for the Township of Centre Wellington, dated April 24th, 2023, for information, and that Council directs staff to transfer 2022 year-end operating surplus in the amount of $31,130 to the General Capital Reserve. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder, Councillor Adams. All those in favor? So moved. We're going to just take a little break, 7 minutes, and we'll see you back shortly. Oh, thank you. Thank you again. We're back. So we're going to go to information items, starting with item 9.1, and we have Fire Chief Tom Mulvey here to speak to the fire master plan. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much, and to you, Mayor Waters, I'm very happy to be here to provide some information about Central Wellington Fire Rescue, as well as give you an update on the master plan. So I thought I'd start just about where we are now and what we have now, just to bring everybody up to speed of where we're trying to get to. Central Wellington Fire Rescue right now is comprised of the two stations, obviously Station 40 that's in Fergus and Station 60 that's in Elora. As paid part-time volunteer firefighters, we respond to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's to over 500 calls annually. You'll remember that last year that call volume reached about 640. So quick math is we're asking our volunteers to either leave their places of employment, their homes, everything almost 2 times a day to come and respond to fires. And I truly believe that we need to thank them for doing that, because it's an overwhelming response. Again, that's about 300 in Fergus, 200 in Elora, so it's very similar. This is the organization chart that we have now. Again, we'll show those faces a little closer, but that's how we're comprised of right at this moment. So here's the full-time staff, or the team that administrative team that runs at the station. Again, I'm the fire chief. You'll see Jonathan Carnes, the deputy fire chief of training and suppression, which means he oversees all the training for the department as well as the suppression efforts and does a tremendous amount of the purchasing. We also have a Deputy Chief, Jason Ben, who is the Deputy Fire Chief for Prevention and Public Education and does the investigations. Again, later in this presentation, we'll talk about the top 2 lines of defense out of the 3 lines of defense that we have in the fire service, and how prevention and education have quickly climbed to the top and are the most important initiatives of any fire department. We also have Christopher Pollock. Chris is the Fire Prevention and Public Education Officer, so does a amount of the field work as far as investigations and inspections and some enforcement as well. In the bottom left, we have Charles Hamilton. Charles is a Wellington County Training Officer. This position is fully funded by the county. However, we do have them listed as employee, and the office space is provided at the Central Wellington Fergus Station. Charles looks after lesson plans for the entire county and all the fire departments in the county, and he also looks after a recruit training program, which is very important. In the fire master plan, it was indicated that by 2028, I believe it is, that NFPA is going to govern everything that we do. So that means that firefighters are going to have to be certified to the NFPA Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2 by that time. I'm happy to announce that we are at that situation already because of, pardon the term, grandfathering. We were allowed to bring firefighters up to speed at the time this was announced, and Charles's recruit class brings all the recruits to NFPA Firefighter 1 and 2. Just another note on that, because we're such a diverse fire service and we do a number of technical rescues, the Fire Master Plan also indicated that by the year 2028 that we'll have to be certified in all of the technical rescue we do. So that would include high angle rescue, fast water rescue, ice water rescue, and so on. The interesting thing about that is that the province has not provided any curriculum for that yet. So although they have told us that we need to be certified, we can't get certified because there is no curriculum. However, we are very good at what they do, and we'll be fine when that time comes. And of course, in the middle is the glue. Karen Lindsay, our administrative assistant, to make sure that we do things right and we do things proper, and does a tremendous amount of work for us. So at full complement, we have 66 paid on-call firefighters when at full strength. There are 6 full-time staff I just introduced you to. The firefighters do carry pagers. The pagers go off, like I say, all through the night and all through the day, and at your kid's birthday party and on Christmas Day. And they respond, and I'm happy to tell you that our response times in Central Wellington are unheard of, in that we'll have a vehicle responding to an emergency just over the 5-minute mark from the time the call goes. So that's, again, unheard of, and awesome that we can do that. So what kind of things do we respond to? Obviously, we respond to structure fires. That was a chicken barn on the bottom right that we responded to. I believe that's the Lower, or the Bellwood Post Office building that the Todd left there. This was in the industrial park. Again, total loss to the building, but the firefighters were allowed to make entry and get a lot of records and computer equipment out of that building, so it allowed continuation of the business, which is also important. Motor vehicle accidents, unfortunately, we go through a tremendous amount of those. Again, highly trained individuals that do a super job of making somebody's day that's terrible at the moment be a little bit better if they can. Again, the high angle gorge rescues that we talked about, we do spend a tremendous amount of time going down in the gorge for many different things, including recreational people that just happen to have a fall down there or other reasons. But again, a highly trained bunch of individuals that do some tremendous amount of work. It's something to see and watch if you ever get to stand back and see them do their operations. And the water and ice rescue. Obviously with Bellwood Lake and the Grand River and the Irvine Rivers, we do spend some time in there with doing some training and some other emergency calls. Medical assist calls, again, VSA's other things, it's all due to a tiered response agreement that we have with EMS. And I spoke to you about the large rise in calls last year was maybe depending on the fact that EMS cannot unload their people at ERs, so that means it'll be more than 20 minutes away from the call, which means that the fire department gets called. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions, but I will tell you at this time right now, the data shows that our response are down from last year, so that's good news. And what we'll try to figure out what exactly caused that, but we're happy now that we're responded less times at this time last year. Other things, carbon monoxide calls. It is certainly grass and brush fire season, so be careful and don't leave your fires unattended. Hazardous material spills, public assistance. Any other situation where the public may need assistance or believes it's an emergency. And just to add to that, I have twice in my career now been called to a bird in a tree. So that trumps the cat in the tree. But we have been called to birds in the tree where it was a single vehicle response. We talked about fire prevention and public education. Again, there's the 3 lines of defense, which is prevention, education, and suppression. We find that if you use fire prevention and public education to educate people, that maybe these fires will go down. And as you know, the numbers of fire deaths in the province of Ontario continues to go up instead of down. And a large amount of those are to the fact that the smoke alarms were either not there, they weren't working, or it was undetermined if they were there or working or not. But so please check your smoke alarms to ensure that they work and that they're less than 10 years old. So in 2017, Centre Wellington Fire and Rescue got the help from Dillon Consulting. They attended here and they did a tremendous amount of interviews. They looked at our call data, they looked at growth patterns and that sort of thing, and they presented a number of things that we needed to do, and that was adopted by council, and I'm going to go through a few of these things just to get you up to speed. So the FPPA governs everything we do. So the buzzwords, that's the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. There's a tremendous amount in the first of that document that would tell you why we do the things that we do and why we need to do the things that we do. The biggest thing is that we have to establish a program for public education, and that's mandatory, and we have to provide fire protection services as it's deemed necessary in accordance with the needs and circumstances. Being a larger municipality that's full-time suppression all the time and prevention and education. Strategies, the priorities were that we need to maintain the services that we already have in place or enhance them, and to do that in an effective and efficient business as the municipality grows. And as you all know, we are growing quickly and we're trying to stay on top of those things. One of the things that the master plan noted was the need for a community risk assessment. It's mandatory for all fire departments in Ontario for 2024. I'm happy to let you know that that document is finished. It's a large document. That document considers census, building stock, types of industry that's in town, a tremendous amount of things, and it's a large document. But what that document allows us to do is to target where we would have the highest risk of dollar loss fires or largest loss of life. So that has been done. It's been done in-house, and I'm just for your interest, other municipalities have budgeted $20,000+ to have that document done, and we were able to do it in-house, and it's a very good document. It'll be sent to the province to be checked to make sure that it was done right, but I'm very confident that it'll come back as done. So again, we got to optimize those first two lines of defense, including public education and fire prevention, fire code standards, enforcement and things. And that's all based on that simplified risk assessment. We had to update the department's mission statement. That hasn't been done. Develop a vision statement to align with the perceptive strategic properties of the proposed fire safety master plan, which we are working on. You'll hear us talk about the E&R bylaw all the time. This is an establishing and regulating bylaw. Right now it's very behind the times. This bylaw would show you the organization chart that I showed you earlier, and it has to reflect everything that we would do as a fire department. So if we're going to provide high-angle rescue, that has to be in our E&R bylaw. And that thing isn't at the time appropriate with the services that we provide. And the importance of that is that if something was to go bad or sour, then one of the first things they would do is come back and look at your E&R bylaw and say, why did you even try to provide that service when it's not in your bylaw that you could provide that service? So that's something that's it's very close to being done and making sure that it's correct. We had to develop a fire protection policy, and for your approval, that is a direct result of what we found in the community risk assessment. So the policy is written, but we're not going to bring that policy forward until we make sure that the community risk assessment has been okayed by the province, at which time we'll bring that policy forward to you. But it is basically done and waiting for that approval. It's also that the fire chief should look at that risk assessment on a yearly basis. Again, the last simplified risk assessment that was done in the municipality was in 2008. So 2008 to 2023 is a long time. We're going to look at that annually to make sure that our programs are where they need to be, and that we also bring an annual report to this council to let you know what we've been doing. So yes, consider the OFM technical guideline, fire safety inspections and enforcement. That's been done. When hiring Jason Banny came with a lot of know-how and that sort of thing, and we've got a number of provincial offenses officers now that can use ticketing and short word process for enforcing that, and it is being done, and it seems to be showing itself that it's working. This is what you see now as far as the Fire Prevention Division, as far as an org chart. So I'm also happy to say that the Station 40 and Station 60 has said that a fire and life safety educator, one volunteer at each station. That number is way more than one. We have probably 5 or 6 each station that are actually certified to the fire life safety educator. And that's a direct result of us being a regional training center and be able to provide that education to our firefighters at minimal cost. So they're very happy to attend different public events and different education things, and it works out very well. So prior to the fire master plan, this is what you would have seen as an organizational chart with the 2 stations, some district chiefs in there. You'll see some captains and acting captains in there. I'm happy to announce that we've changed the acting program to a lieutenant's program. An acting captain would only be a captain when they're asked to act. A lieutenant will be a lieutenant at all times, and they'll have different roles as far as what they do in the fire scene, training, and public education, all the while being mentored by an officer to take a next position as a captain when it's needed. So this is based on the full-time staff of 5 and the 2-station model. This is NFPA 1720 simplified. NFPA 1720 is the standard that's put out there that governs paid part-time volunteer firefighters and how many people they have to have on scene in so many minutes at 80th percentile of the time. So basically what this is, when I get asked a number of times, what drives you to move from paid part-time to full-time? This is what's going to drive that. Right now, I'm happy to announce that we are meeting those standards, succeeding those standards of having the right amount of people on time at different distances away. Our urban boundaries, we found it, are moving right now. That'll dictate some things, but it sounds like from conversations I've had, it might not be developed for a while, but those are the things that we're going to have to keep an eye on. But right now, NFPA 1720 is being satisfied by the Centre Wellington Fire. I apologize for this map, but in the it's just quick. Those 3 red dots that you see, the 1 dot to my right is the Fergus Fire Station, the 1 dot to the left is the Elora Fire Station, in a proposed 3-station model. That station, there's concerns that both our fire stations are on the south side of Grand River. Should the Bellwood Reservoir be full and there's a catastrophic failure of Shan Dam, that might cause a problem for us getting trucks from to the other side or to the north side of the town. There's a tremendous amount of studies done on that and the amount of time, and there are strategies in place right now that we would be fine had we get the notice, and we will. However, the 3rd station is strategically placed as per information we had about growth at the time that will continue to have us satisfy NFPA 1720 and stay as a volunteer part-time fire department for a long time. This proposal was to be done in 2027, and it was going to complement, up the complement of firefighters to the around 90 mark. With technology today and stuff like that, we still need the 3rd fire station, but we might not need to get to the 90 firefighters because with the technology, we can tell them with the paging sound as to which station they would respond to. So rather than having 2 firefighters, we could just have 2 sets of gear. So that would be a huge savings to municipality, but that's still being studied and hopefully will show itself. This is the 3-station model that we talked about. So adding a 3rd fire station, 50 in the Aboyne area, and again, that's all projected on growth and things. Moving the Station 60 Elora one down to a satellite station and relieving some of that again, but with the technology I said today, that whole model could change other than the fact that we still need the 3 stations and we'd still need some staff and incident commanders and representatives at that station. Again, this target would include having the minimum amount of firefighters that are on call up to 16, which is helps in especially in the summertime and holiday time and stuff like that, to ensure that 16 people at least will be coming to a call. The other thing that the Fire Master Plan pointed out, and we talked about this, is that we have an aging fleet. Again, this is the pumper that we talked about replacing, and as far as had been doubled in price. It's a 2023. The Fire Master Plan suggested that we pull that back and spend some refurbishing money on it and make it a backup pumper. Right now, if we have a pumper go to service, we have nothing to take its place. The big concern with an aging fleet is obviously the cost of maintenance, getting parts for them. It is over 20 years old. And not only that, the burden of it responding to a call and not making it, because that would not turn out great for us. So we do all the maintenance that we can. We assure that it's safe to drive and that we do what we can, but it's aging and wearing out. So there's a tremendous amount of moving parts in one of those trucks. So that's basically my update on the master plan. I would be happy to take any questions and answer them if I can.
Thank you, Chief Mulvey. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. I'm looking at how many volunteers we have, the locations that we serve, and what do you do for the officers with de-escalating after some things that they might see on the job? How are we proactive with that? And do we have support services for them?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. And through Mayor Waters, we have teams in place. We consider them CISM teams, Critical Incident Stress Management teams. They've been trained, formally trained, on how to talk to members that may have seen some situations or dealt with some situations. We debrief after every call. If we see a need or needs identified, then we'll call in different parts of a CISM team. We provide our teams to neighboring municipalities as well, in case you're not comfortable in talking in front of your peers. And the agencies, again, as far as GWEMS or Guelph Wellington EMS and OPP work very well together. They all have teams, and they're willing to share those people as well for meetings. So thank you for that question. It's a big part of our game now. It's PTSD and critical illness stress. And we want to provide as much, I'm not going to say help, but I'll say support to the firefighters that may see some terrible things, for sure.
Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of our volunteers doing this incredible work, and we really appreciate it. Before I get to it, do we have anything that we formally do? Again, new councillor, so I apologize. Anything that we formally do to thank these volunteers every year?
We have in the past. We do some employee appreciation things, and we've done events where we've asked their employers and their family members to all gather with us, and we provide plaques to the employers that let their firefighters leave. Even if it happens to be a self-employed person, they would get that same plaque. The fact that we have so much industry in Centre Wellington and that employers are happy to let their employees leave, even for training, makes it much easier for us to satisfy NFPA 1720 and not have us move into a career department. So
Agreed.
yes, we do as much as we can to thank them.
Fabulous. Please let us know what or if council gets involved going forward, something like that.
Council will be involved. The fact is that COVID again, and we're going to be able to stop blaming that soon on everything. And I'll appreciate that more than anybody, but we will be planning an event like that for sure. And
Thank
we're more
you.
than happy to invite you.
My questions are around the EMS team. So I understand this is done through Guelph, and I heard you say the Guelph EMS. At what point do we need to consider in our long-term plan that we have teams? Because I believe you and I have talked about it, how there are communities taking off some of the medical professional burden by actually doing house calls and using our EMS teams to actually do these house calls. And I recognize that we are not, I'll use the word in control of, because I don't know the correct language in this case, of the EMS teams. But as we grow and our numbers grow and we get a third station, which, by the way, we need to look more at because it's very close to 27. I'm wondering what kind of capacity or appetite there is for us to take that on, when I think it's worthy of future discussion with our hospital and medical teams, what can be taken on or at least shared some of that burden.
Well, thank you for that question. And through you, Mayor Waters, I would say that the fact that we're already asking our volunteers to go 2 times a day for emergency calls and 1 night a week to train, and every 5th Saturday, it would be hard to ask them to go out and do more. That being said, we're always here to help and we're willing to help. And if that was a need, then we'd certainly sit with Guelph Wellington EMS. They have teams that are doing it now. We do have paramedics that are volunteer firefighters, so we do have that kind of communication within the team, and we'd be happy to help if we could.
Wonderful. Thank you again, and I look forward to discussions about the new station.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Adams.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Again, thank you to your staff and to all the volunteers for everything you guys do. I think you guys are top class. We have a top class volunteer system, and I think we can see that even when you speak about being able to do in-house some of those assessments and everything. That just shows the knowledge and everything that we have here. I think of the education that we do with our children is like so key and so valuable. I know, like, even in our house, it's like the children that will remind you about, like, if you teach the kids, they'll kind of teach the parents, right, to remind you to change your smoke alarms and all of this. And the one issue I do see, especially as we continue to grow, and no matter how much phenomenal marketing Kendra does in terms of getting the, pull over for the green light out there, even just living closer to a station, I see all the time, I feel like there's still this lack of awareness there. And I'm just curious, we do a lot in social media and in print to promote that. Is that kind of getting into the schools? Can we maybe teach our kids to teach our
We've done
teach our
several
adults
initiatives
there?
to get the green light recognized as volunteer firefighters. You'll see in a lot of our large apparatus now that we've introduced a green light to them as well. So not only do you see the red and the blue and the white, but you'll see a green flashing light. The intent is that they'll associate the green flashing light with firefighters. The signage, we explained to school tours and things like that, and when we attend schools that volunteers with green flashing lights are there to, it's to help their response to the station. There are no laws that tell you that you need to move out of the way, and it doesn't provide us any more leeway as far as going through red lights or stop signs or speeding. It's just a tool that hopefully people will be able to, if it's safe to do so, get out of the way and let us get to our call.
Any other comments, questions from council? Again, thanks Chief Mulvey for the presentation. Again, on behalf of the community, I'd like to thank you, staff and the volunteer fire department for all your efforts. I know we, over the years, really appreciate all the level and the quality of service that is provided by your group, and also how complicated in terms of the things that you deal with, given the fact that we live in a very physical community with rivers and gorges and all that. Again, appreciate your time and effort, and I see them out in Bissell many times out there doing their practice. So really, on behalf of the community, again, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for your group.
I'd like to thank this council for their support as well. Thanks for the time.
Okay, we're going to move to item 9.2, capital project status, December 31st, 2022. Is that Mark is making his way to the podium. Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Waters. This report's just for information, but a little background. Quarterly finance reviews capital projects with managing directors and provides a high-level status report to council. And then annually, finance reviews capital projects with managing directors in January to determine if any projects are completed and if they can be closed at December 31st. So the net impact of closing capital projects at the 2022 year end is a reduction in the general capital reserve of approximately $36,000. There's an increase in the waterworks general capital reserve balance of about $179,000, and an increase in the wastewater general capital reserve balance of about $226,000. So the report is in attachment A, and it's, I believe back in January we provided a report in the same format, so this is kind of the format that we provide every quarter, and I guess I'll just open it for any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Comments, questions from council? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to item 9.3. Tender Award Committee Report, January 1st, 2023 to April 24th, 2023. And Adam, will you speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Waters. Through you. Really just another informational report. This report just details the activities of the Tender Award Committee. The Tender Award Committee is responsible for tender awards only. They don't touch RFPs in any way, shape, or form. But these are for items that are below the $1 million threshold and within budget, where we have a Tender Award Committee comprised of staff, CAO, myself, and managing directors responsible for award of these items, and this is just the culmination of the efforts thus far from January 1 to today in terms of the Tender Award Committee activities.
Council, comments, questions? Thank you, Adam. On that item, we'll move down to 9.4, Treasurer's Annual Statement 2022, Development Charge Reserve Funds.
Again, through you, Mayor Waters, this report is a requirement. We are legislatively obligated, or I am, to report to council annually on the activities as it pertains to the development charges and the reserve funds that are associated with those development charges on an annual basis. And this is the culmination of those activities for 2022 with the support of an amazing finance team behind me, providing the details. So this is just to satisfy the annual requirement. I'm happy to field any questions as it pertains to the activities for 2022.
Council, comments, questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Adam. So we're going to move down to our favorite part of the meeting, bylaws. So item 10.1, 2023-32, a bylaw to amend the Township of Centre Wellington zoning bylaw 2009-045 as amended to change the zoning of subject lands from FD R4 to 72.1 465 Garafraxa Street, West Fergus. 2023-33, a bylaw to amend or a bylaw to provide the appointment of a municipal law enforcement officers for the Corporation and Township of Centre Wellington for the purpose of enforcing the Township Parking Bylaw number 5005 as amended. There's a recommendation that bylaws 2023-32 and 2023-33 be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and the corporate seal affixed. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconder Councillor McDonald. All those in favor? So moved. We have notice of motions. Notice of motions from Councillor Wilton, just to let you know that they're there. Then we move down to item 12, motions where notices have been given. Item 13, confirmatory bylaw. A bylaw to confirm the actions of council. A recommendation that bylaw 2023-34 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held April 24th, 2023 be introduced a first, second, and third time and passed in open council. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Evoy, seconder by Councillor Wilton. All those in favor? So moved. And we have an adjournment. So do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder for that. Councillor McDonald. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you for your time and appreciate all your input tonight.